Just north of Bowling Green is a community known for its antiques, but there are many stories about this place that can't be found in the china and chiffon-robes of the shops. Join us for a historic tour of Smith's Grove today on Warren County Preserves. Hello, I'm Amy Bingham. The antique stores are what now draw people to this small community, but the rich land and abundant wild game are what first captured the attention of early white settlers. In fact, hunting a bird that we today don't think of as wild game was a common pastime. Beatrice Madison told us about the memories of Dr. Allen, written in 1899.
In early days, this place was covered with pigeons, and men would go sometimes, stay 2 days shooting pigeons just for the fun of it. And I have read in that little book of Dr. Allen's, and it said that the droppings from the pigeons would be about 1 inch deep, and said that was what made the rich soil in this part of the county.
In his book, Dr. Allen also reminisced about the affordability of the area, where land was going for $10 to $25 per acre. Tobacco and corn were the main crops, and for the most part were grown with the aid of slave labor. The rich soil and cheap prices were attractive to farmers, who slowly began to build a village, but it was the completion of the Louisville and Nashville Railroad in 1859 that helped the small community quickly develop into a full-grown town.
We had many passenger trains that came through here. We had freight trains. Passenger trains stopped. And at one time, if you wanted to go shopping in Bowling Green, there was a train you could take, and then you could ride back home that night on another train.
My father worked on the railroad, and we got a pass. All our family could. We could ride trains free. So we were on trains quite a bit. And I'd like to tell you about the depot, which I wish we could have kept for a community building. It was in 4 sections. The first section was for the black passengers, and the next section was for the office work, and then the next section was for the white passengers, and then there was a baggage room on the end, and there was a long platform, a concrete platform in front of the depot, and they had 2 baggage carts that they would roll up to the baggage car of the train. And see, back then there wasn't trucks like we have now, so there was a lot of baggage shipped on the train, and then they would load baggage to be sent away from here. And at the end of this platform, there was, I guess you'd call it a crane, and they would hang mail, a sack of mail on that, and as the trains came through, they'd reach out and grab it, and then our mail was thrown off the train.
Belta Rose Smith, who now calls Smith's Grove home, remembers taking the train each summer from Chicago to visit her grandmother in Smith's Grove.
It was a big adventure. We brought our own food on. You could eat in the dining car, but we didn't have the money to eat in the dining car, so we bring sandwiches, stuff, so we'd have enough food till we got to Kentucky.
With the railroad came salesmen and businessmen, grocery stores, drugstores and bakeries, doctors and dentists, waterworks, an ice house and feed plant, butchers and bankers. Dave and James R. Kirby began the Farmers Bank in 1894. W.H. Cook constructed this commercial building around 1875. In 1912, when it served as a drugstore, the 3rd building on this strip was built for J.W. Cook. Across the street stands the old Model A dealership that once had an opera house on the 2nd floor. One of the owners of the building, Jesse Kirby, constructed Warren County's first airplane at this location. Facing Main Street is another strip of early commercial buildings that now form the backbone of Smiths Grove's Antique District. All around this commercial core developed residential neighborhoods. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the architectural jewels that helped this area become listed in the National Register of Historic Places. Welcome back to Warren County Preserves. With the completion of the L&N Railroad, Smiths Grove became a prosperous community. It developed similar to other railroad towns, with a commercial center running along the railroad, surrounded by residential neighborhoods with large farms on the outskirts. The Odd Fellows, a fraternal organization, began the now city-owned cemetery on the outer edge of Smiths Grove. It was typical for communities to begin the community cemetery outside of town for health reasons. Many of the city's leaders and town builders are buried here. Smiths Grove, like other towns, was racially segregated, with the black neighborhood on the west side of town and the white neighborhood on the east side, and there were separate schools for the children.
On Cave Street, what's called Cave Street, that's where the black people lived. And we had a school. We had two schools at one time, the white school and the black school. And the black school was down in that part of town on Cave Street.
Education was the true mark of success for any community. One of the earliest educational facilities in Smiths Grove was the Poplar Level Academy, founded in 1848. The Warren Baptist Academy provided the equivalent of a high school education for many years. Warren County constructed the North Warren High School in 1942 on this same location. The building now serves as the North Warren Elementary School.
My mother attended one, but I know she took 4 years of Latin, and I'm not sure how many years of Greek, because I used to have her to say the Greek alphabet for me.
The Warren Baptist School was located on the very edge of the white neighborhood. The houses here reflect the economic success of Smiths Grove. Entrepreneur William Cook built the largest home right on Main Street.
The town of Smiths Grove was incorporated in the 1870s. William H. Cook built this house in 1875. He also owned this entire block. There's a Presbyterian church in the back corner, and that's where his carriage house and his barn was. Where the drugstore sits next door is where the family garden was. He had family, he had servants, and he had livestock to feed, so it took a lot of food. He was only 25 years old when he built this house, and that was only 10 years after the Civil War ended, so he was quite the entrepreneur.
Throughout the district are beautiful examples of the styles popular at the turn of the 20th century. George Wilcoxon, who built Cook's home and other homes and businesses in the district, built this house for himself in Smiths Grove. The J.L. Wright House on First Street has features that are typical of a Greek Revival structure. However, the T-plan, in which two bays project from the left of the central door, replaces the expected central or side passage plans. This brick house is one of a few Gothic Revival houses in Warren County. The prosperity of the community is also evident in the well-known architects of the region who designed structures for Smiths Grove. Creedmoor Fleener designed the Smiths Grove Baptist Church, a Gothic Revival-style church in the late 1890s. In 1904, Fleener was selected Associate Architect and Superintendent of Construction for the present State Capitol building in Frankfort. James Maurice Ingram designed the current gym for the North Warren High School in 1946. Ingram was one of the area's most prolific architects. In addition to sought-after architects, Smiths Grove even hosted a well-known political figure, twice Governor of Kentucky, Albert Benjamin Chandler.
Happy Chandler spoke on the doorsteps of the bank. We had so many people there to hear him speak, and it was something for a small town like Smiths Grove for Chandler to speak in.
Despite the early success of the town, Smiths Grove could not escape the impacts of the Depression in the early 1930s.
I worked at the bank for 35 years. And it was the deposit bank, a home-owned bank at that time. And it was the oldest bank in Warren County when it was the deposit bank. And during the Depression, currency was so short that Mr. Hardy, the funeral director here, had a check for $100 and they cashed it in pennies. They didn't have currency to cash it.
Velta Rose Smith remembers how the economy of this agricultural community worked.
A lot of people would charge their groceries till they sold tobacco, since this was a big tobacco growing community, and they would sell their tobacco in the right before winter, right before Christmas time, and then they would pay off their grocery bill from the entire year with that, and then they'd have a little money left over to buy something special for Christmas. It wouldn't be very much, but the economy was very much that way. And can you imagine today? We would never think of charging your groceries, especially not for, a whole year.
This agricultural way of life continued up until the 1950s. During the week, Smiths Grove was the shopping center for nearby farmers and their families. But on weekends, the town took on a different air. One establishment in particular was a favorite of men and women looking for a break from their hard-working lives.
It was called Chief Walker's Pool Room, and he had, it was a bowling, I guess you'd call it bowling. I think they called it 10 pins then. And later on, he sold beer. And then there was another beer place in town. And when there's beer sold in Smiths Grove, it was a lively place. On Saturdays, the cars were bumper to bumper and sidewalks were full of people.
And that's what I have always heard, that this was kind of a wild place, which is hard to believe now because, of course, there are no places to buy alcohol anymore or any of that kind of thing. But and I think that was part of that coming down to watch people on Saturday night, was kind of watching to see how wild everybody was, what they were doing.
Smiths Grove is a different town than it used to be. The popularity of automobiles, the interstate, and the advent of big chain stores has made Smiths Grove more of a suburb of Bowling Green, less self-sufficient than it once was. But the remembrances of times past will live on in its architecture and in the memories and stories of this small community.